Have you heard about medbeds? No, this isn't science fiction, at least not as you imagine it. What if I told you that there are beds capable of regenerating organs, reversing aging, and eliminating diseases in minutes? Technologies that, according to reports, have been hidden from humanity for decades and are now beginning to surface. But what is behind this mysterious technology? Who really created medbeds? Are they a gift from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations? Or a power play hidden by the global elites? What's more, are we as humanity ready to deal with something so transformative? Get ready. What you are about to discover will challenge everything you think you know about health, reality, and even who you are. In this video, we will explore the cosmic origins of this technology, the accounts of those who have experienced its effects, the ethical conflicts it raises, and the role you can and must play at this decisive moment in human history. Stay until the end, because once you understand the true potential of medbeds, there will be no turning back. We are witnessing the dawn of a new era. A time when the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual, between the visible and the invisible, are beginning to dissolve. This is a time of reconnection with the cosmos, with our stellar origin, and with the vastness of a conscious universe. The old narratives that underpinned our beliefs are beginning to crumble in the face of a greater truth. Reality is not fixed, but rather a malleable field of possibilities shaped by our intentions and vibrations. In this scenario of profound change, thousands of people around the planet report feeling a kind of inner calling. It is as if an ancient memory, long dormant, is being reactivated. Something that drives us to seek answers beyond the surface of things, beyond what we have been taught in books, schools, and institutions. A call that echoes in the synchronicities of everyday life, in vivid dreams, in sudden intuitions. It is cosmic energy in action, awakening in us the recognition that we are, each one of us, a living extension of universal consciousness. This awakening does not happen in isolation. It is collective. It is as if the Earth is passing through an energy belt that amplifies our perceptions and expands our horizons. And with this expansion, new technologies are beginning to emerge, or perhaps old technologies are being rediscovered, that promise to transform the way we understand health, time, the body, and existence itself. Among these innovations, one stands out in a powerful and controversial way: medbeds. More than machines, they represent a paradigm shift, a bridge between quantum science and the sacred. Medbeds have been described as devices that look like something out of a science fiction movie. However, for a growing number of people around the world, they are as concrete a reality as they are revolutionary. Unlike conventional methods of traditional medicine, which focus on treating symptoms, medbeds offer a total regeneration approach. They work at the root of imbalance, reprogramming the body at the cellular level using principles of quantum physics, bioresonance, and multidimensional engineering. Imagine entering a chamber where your body is scanned with extreme precision, where every cell is analyzed and restored to its original matrix, free of mutations, trauma, or disease. That's what it's all about. These beds don't just identify imbalances. They correct them instantly using highly refined electromagnetic frequencies, coherent lights, and an advanced form of artificial intelligence integrated with universal consciousness. According to reports from insiders and theorists, there are different versions of these beds, with capabilities ranging from healing injuries and chronic diseases to regenerating entire organs, repairing DNA, and even completely rejuvenating the physical body. Some technologies claim to be able to restore amputated limbs, erase traumatic memories, and even significantly extend human lifespan. The principle behind medbeds is simple yet profound. everything in the universe vibrates. And when that vibration becomes disharmonious, disease arises. Thus, healing is, in essence, restoring the original frequency of each part of the body, mind, and soul. And this is possible when one understands that human beings are more than flesh and bones. They are energy, light, and information. Perhaps the most intriguing and contested aspect of medbeds is their origin. Several scholars, channelers, and insiders of so-called secret operations suggest that this technology was not created on Earth, at least not by human hands. They attribute the knowledge and original prototypes to the Pleiadian and Arcturian civilizations, beings of high consciousness who, according to these accounts, have been accompanying the development of humanity for millennia. These beings, described as deeply compassionate, ethical, and technologically advanced, are said to have offered this technology as part of a broader effort to assist planet Earth in its dimensional transition. Humanity, in its evolutionary journey, has reached a critical point. Either it moves toward integration with the cosmos, or it repeats the cycles of suffering and destruction. Medbeds, in this context, would be a gift, an instrument of liberation from pain and disease, not only on the physical level, but also on the spiritual level. Some claim that these technologies were already in use in other dimensions, in interplanetary ships and underground bases shared between humans and extraterrestrials. Over time, they would have been gradually adapted to our material density. The proposal of these stellar allies would be to teach us to use these tools responsibly, ethically, and consciously. After all, a technology as powerful as medbeds could easily be misused for selfish interests if it is not anchored in the wisdom of the heart. The extraterrestrial presence is no longer a matter of belief for many, it is a lived experience. Testimonials from contactees, hypnotic regressions, and reports from retired military personnel and scientists corroborate the idea that we are not alone and never have been. Medbed technology is just one of many pieces of evidence of this interaction, and perhaps the most important for our evolution as a species, because healing the body is only the beginning. The real purpose is to heal humanity. The real revolution brought about by medbeds goes beyond physical healing. What is at stake here is a holistic transformation, a complete reconfiguration of being. According to reports, when lying down on one of these beds, the patient not only receives adjustments to their biology, they are also led into a state of deep energetic harmony, where body, mind, emotions, and spirit come into sync. It is as if each cell remembers who it is, what its function is, and its original frequency. This reconnection happens because medbeds operate on quantum principles that respect the interdependence of all dimensions of the human being. It is not just about eliminating a disease, but about understanding why it arose, what message it carries, and how its transmutation can raise consciousness. From this perspective, diseases are expressions of misalignment between the individual and their essence. When this alignment is restored, healing becomes inevitable. There is also a powerful spiritual element to this process. Many users report profound experiences while using medbeds, from visions of past lives to encounters with spiritual guides. This is because, by raising their frequency, the individual's energy field becomes more sensitive to higher planes of existence. The technology acts as a catalyst, not only for healing, but also for awakening. It fine-tunes our connection with the universe and with the cosmic intelligence that permeates everything. For this reason, the use of these beds requires awareness. They are not machines for ego gratification or escape from human responsibilities. They demand ethics, spiritual maturity, and pure intention. When operated from the heart, they become true bridges to ascension. When used with greed or selfish ambition, they can create even greater imbalances. Perhaps the most powerful lesson that medbeds can offer us is not in the technology itself, but in the reminder that the capacity for healing already exists within us. For millennia, we have been conditioned to believe that we are fragile, vulnerable, dependent on external systems for survival. This mindset has created a humanity disconnected from its own power. But what if the real revolution is the reclamation of our inner power? The use of medbeds can be seen as a living metaphor for this process. By reprogramming the body, they also show us how we should naturally function. They remind us that our cells have intelligence, that our thoughts shape reality, and that intention is a creative force. The body is not a collection of isolated parts, but a vibrational orchestra that responds to the internal conductor, our consciousness. Several ancient spiritual traditions have already spoken of this. The Egyptians, the Vedas, the shamans, all pointed to the power of thought, prayer, meditation, and conscious breathing as tools for healing. What medbeds do is translate this ancient wisdom into advanced technology. They do not replace our personal responsibility, they amplify it. They show us what is possible, but invite us to do our part. Imagine a world where every human being understands that they can influence their DNA with love, forgiveness, and gratitude. Where people recognize that what they eat, feel, and think directly impacts their vibrational field. This is the world that medbeds are helping to create. Not a planet of technological dependence, but an awakened civilization that uses technology as a mirror and extension of its own consciousness. In a scenario as vast and fascinating as that of medbeds, it is natural that exaggerations, distortions, and false promises will also arise. In times of uncertainty and collective anxiety, many people become vulnerable to narratives that mix truths, half-truths, and conspiracy theories. Therefore, it is essential to practice discernment. Not everything that glitters is gold. Even the most advanced technologies can be exploited by hidden agendas. The video issues a necessary warning. We should not blindly accept any information, especially when it is packaged in sensationalist or dogmatic discourse. The case of theories linked to the QAnon movement, for example, shows how easy it is to manipulate the human desire for salvation, justice, or redemption through seductive but distorted stories. The search for truth requires a critical eye, attentive listening, and above all, a deep connection with intuition. This does not mean rejecting new ideas, but knowing how to investigate them in depth. It is necessary to cross-reference sources, observe patterns, and engage in dialogue with different points of view. The true seeker is not satisfied with easy answers. They want to understand the hidden mechanisms behind appearances. They know that even technologies that are supposedly for good can be co-opted if they are not accompanied by ethical wisdom and spiritual maturity. Therefore, before sharing information, ask yourself, does this promote clarity or confusion? Does it expand awareness or generate fear? Does it come from a transparent source or an obscure channel? The world is thirsty for truth, but that truth must be accompanied by integrity. Medbeds can be a blessing or a trap, depending on the awareness with which they are integrated into society. Discernment is now more valuable than ever. Human history is littered with innovations that have been silenced, distorted, or simply erased from collective memory. Technologies that could have radically transformed our way of life have been deliberately suppressed for various reasons, economic, political, or religious. According to many independent scholars and researchers, the case of medbeds fits into this same pattern of concealment. Some claim that these healing beds have been around for decades, in the possession of military elites or private corporations, but kept away from the public under the pretext of national security. This phenomenon is not new. Nikola Tesla, for example, was one of the greatest geniuses in modern history, and yet much of his discoveries about free energy were suppressed. The same happened to inventors who developed water-powered engines, anti-gravity propulsion systems, and alternative methods of healing with sound, light, or magnetism. These technologies, because they challenged the interests of large industries, pharmaceutical, energy, military, were systematically discredited or shelved. The case of MedBeds, therefore, invites us to reflect critically. To what extent is the science we know truly free? What knowledge is being deliberately hidden? And most importantly, how can we ensure that new technologies, as they emerge, are used transparently and for the benefit of all, not just a privileged minority? The answer lies in a reconciliation between innovation and validation. It is not enough to accept MedBeds based on emotional testimonials or exotic theories. And nor should they be dismissed because they do not fit into the mold of traditional academic science. The ideal is to build bridges between the two worlds: test, study, measure, prove. True science does not fear the unknown. It investigates it with courage, curiosity, and humility. And that is what we need: a new science, open to mystery but anchored in ethics and rigor. For centuries, science and spirituality have moved in opposite directions. On one side, the empirical method based on observation and experimentation. On the other, ancient wisdom based on intuition, oral tradition, and subtle perception of life energies. But this dichotomy is beginning to crumble. The modern world is rediscovering the value of integration, and MedBeds are a living reflection of this fusion. Cutting-edge technology that, in essence, operates on the same principles that shamans, healers, and mystics have been teaching for millennia. In ancient cultures, such as those of the Maya, Egyptians, and Vedas, it was already understood that health is the result of harmony between the body, mind, spirit, and environment. Healing, in this context, was realigning the being with their life purpose, with their spiritual mission. Tools such as crystals, sounds, colors, and rituals were used to restore vibrational balance. Today, scientific discoveries about frequencies, electromagnetic fields, and biophotonics are beginning to validate this ancient knowledge from a new perspective. Imagine a future where doctors and shamans work side by side, where hospitals have spaces for meditation, therapeutic music, contact with nature, and quantum equipment such as MedBeds. A future where the patient is not just a sick body, but a multidimensional being in search of reconnection. This is already beginning to happen. Integrative clinics, vibrational therapies, and consciousness research are gaining ground, challenging old health paradigms. This new medicine does not exclude conventional science, it expands it. And in doing so, it honors the wisdom of the peoples who came before us, because even without diplomas or laboratories, they knew something essential, that true healing begins when the heart aligns with the soul. Technology then ceases to be an end in itself and becomes a means to rescue what is most sacred: balance with life. As we approach a turning point in human history, an inevitable question arises. How far should we go with technology? MedBeds confront us with profound ethical dilemmas. If it is possible to regenerate organs, reverse aging, or even modify traumatic memories, who decides who will have access to this? By what criteria? And what will be the psychological, social, and spiritual implications of this type of intervention? These questions are more than philosophical, they are practical. After all technology, no matter how advanced, carries with it the risk of being used for control, manipulation, or exclusion. A world where only the rich can access total healing is an even more unequal world, and a world where machines make decisions about the human body without considering its soul is a dehumanized world. That is why ethics must be at the center of all innovation. Clear, universal, and compassionate guidelines must be established. Technologies such as medbeds should be made available based on need, not purchasing power. Their use should be transparent and supervised by interdisciplinary councils that include scientists, therapists, spiritual leaders, and representatives of civil society. Above all, there must be in-depth education about the impacts of these tools on human consciousness. Ethics is not a luxury, it is an urgency. Because the more power we have in our hands, the more responsibility we have in our hearts. Medbeds can open the door to a new era of health, longevity, and well-being. But they will only be truly revolutionary if they are accompanied by wisdom. Wisdom to serve life, not the ego. Wisdom to heal the world, not just bodies. Amid the avalanche of information that floods the world every day, it is urgent to cultivate a new type of social role, that of guardian of truth and balance. This is not a role assigned by a diploma, position, or status. It is a responsibility assumed by those who understand that knowledge is power, and that with power comes the duty to act with conscience. In the context of medbeds and all emerging technologies, being a guardian of truth means investigating, discerning, communicating, and protecting what is sacred, the integrity of information and the common good. We live in an era where narrative manipulation is as sophisticated as the technologies that emerge. That is why it is essential to know how to separate the wheat from the chaff, to identify what comes from wisdom and what comes from opportunism, what inspires liberation and what sows fear. It is not enough to repeat viral content or assume as truth what pleases our ego. We need to go beyond confirmation bubbles and question even our most cherished beliefs. At the same time, this role requires balance, because in polarized times, maintaining serenity is a revolutionary act. It is easy to fall into the trap of blind denial or fanatical belief, but the true guardian seeks the center. They understand that truth is rarely absolute. It is alive, dynamic, multifaceted. And above all, they know that every great change begins within each of us. It is not just about correcting the world outside, but about purifying one's own intentions, becoming a channel of lucidity, compassion, and ethical firmness. When we act with awareness, we inspire others to do the same. We create waves of coherence that reverberate throughout society. We transform misinformation into wisdom, panic into discernment, hatred into compassion. In this process, technologies, such as medbeds, cease to be objects of fascination or fear and become tools of service, expressions of our collective maturity. Technology is neutral. We determine its direction. If we choose the path of integrity, empathy, and deep knowledge, we will not only be users of these technologies, we will be co-creators of a new civilization. And that starts now, with every choice we make, every word we spread, every truth we defend with a clear heart. As this video comes to a close, the question that echoes is inevitable. Are we ready? Ready for a world where the limitations that have accompanied us for generations simply cease to exist? Ready to deal with technologies that invite us to push the boundaries of what we thought possible? Ready to be not just recipients of healing, but agents of profound transformation? Medbeds symbolize more than technological innovation. They are mirrors of what we can be when we free ourselves from ignorance, fear, and resignation. They represent a new vision of health, not as the absence of disease, but as the full expression of being. And they point to a future where science, spirituality, compassion, and wisdom walk hand in hand. But this future will not be handed to us as a passive gift. It must be built, sustained, and defended with awareness. It is up to each of us to cultivate this future now, in our daily attitudes, ethical decisions, and commitment to truth. We need to look beyond sensationalism, polarization, and technological dazzle. We must always remember that the most powerful tool we have is still our awakened consciousness. If medbeds are real, and more evidence suggests that they will only have true value if they are used with love, justice, and wisdom. Otherwise, they will be just another invention distorted by the old paradigm of control. The choice is before us, and it begins in the mind, passes through the heart, and manifests in our actions. This is the moment to unite as humanity, to recognize our stellar origin, our luminous destiny, and our responsibility to this planet. The universe is watching us, and it is waiting for us to awaken, not just to healing, but to love, to truth, to balance.